Hi everybody, this is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. Someone commented recently that they'd like to see how I grow broccoli sprouts. So that's what I'm going to do today, is show you how I grow broccoli sprouts. But even if you're familiar with how to grow jar sprouts, please do stay with me because I'm going to share a lot of important tips along the way. Now this process is going to take a number of days, so I'll have short clips each day so you see the progress along the way. I'm starting with a full jar that I'm going to empty out, and I have a reason for doing this and showing you why I recommend certain types of jars. Anyway, this is a very full jar. It's a quart size mason jar, and it is full, and it's a wide mouth jar, okay? So I want you to see that. Now it is full. And so I'm going to empty it out, and this is why I recommend a large mouth jar, because it's a lot easier to get your sprouts out of a large mouth jar rather than a regular jar. And you see I put it in a container that's lined with paper towels, and that helps to soak up any remaining moisture that might be in there. They do need a humid environment, but not wet. We don't want it to be wet. You see, I have to just kind of pick these things out of the jar, and yes, my hands have been freshly washed, okay? So now you see I have quite a bit of sprouts out of that one jar, and I'm going to show you what equipment you need and how many seeds you need in order to do that. Okay, my fresh tub of broccoli sprouts was covered up and went straight into the refrigerator. And all right, now I'm ready to start a new one. And obviously, first thing we need is a wide mouth mason jar. You can do it in a regular mouth, but you saw I had to dig my hand in there to pull them out, and it's a whole lot easier to do it if you have a wide mouth jar. Now you need some sort of a covering on here that will allow for airflow. And for many, many years, all I did was take a piece of cheesecloth, and yes, this is all wrinkled and funky, but that's okay, it's clean, and take a rubber band and put it around the rim there, and that's all you really need if that's what you have. Of course, you need a smaller piece than what I've got, so this is not really used for this one. If you don't have cheesecloth, but you have some nylon screen around, you could cut a small piece off and do the same thing. Put rubber band around the rim, and that will hold it in place. You can do it this way. You just want to make sure that the holes in whatever you use are going to be small enough so that your seeds won't all flow out when you rinse them. Another thing that people have done is take some mesh that they can get in the craft store for needlepoint mesh. Now this is too large to use for broccoli seeds, but you could use this needlepoint mesh for sprouting mung beans or lentils or something like that, and you can cut it to fit inside of a metal jar rim and then put it on your jar that way, and that's awesome. That works out really well. The only detrimental part about this is these metal rims will tend to rust over time, so yeah, it's a little bit of an issue. And then there are different types of lids that are on the market now that you can buy. There's a set of 3 that I've got right here with different size holes in them, from a smaller hole to a medium hole to larger holes. And this is a set of 3 that you can buy online. I'll put links below on where you can get these. And then there is also this one that comes online. It's plastic around with a metal mesh screen on there. This is really a nice lid, but I have found that it's hard to get it securely on the jar. It just doesn't seem to fit very well on my jar. You may not have this problem, but I have had it with that one, that type of a problem. The one that I found that works well for me is this set of 3. And the smaller mesh on there with the yellow lid seems to work okay for small seeds like broccoli seeds. So, okay, I'll have links to those. You have your choices on which way you can go. So for the amount of broccoli sprouts that I just showed you, I start with a tablespoon and a half. This is a measured tablespoon and a half of seeds in my clean jar. I do not worry about sterilizing the jar, but I do wash it really, really well as the lids really well, okay? So some people will use 1 tablespoon of seeds. Some people will go as much as 2 tablespoons. And that can vary depending upon how long you let them go, okay? I'm happy with 1.5 tablespoons. All right, now I've got my seeds in my jar. And the first thing you want to do is give them a good rinse. And I use filtered water. No specific amount is important on this. You just want to give them a good rinse. And for this purpose, I put the lid on it and then turn it upside down and let them drain out. And then I might give the jar a little tap just to get some of the seeds off of that lid. And then I'm going to do it again. And you do want to rinse them once anyway. Sometimes I'll rinse them 2 or 3 times, okay? So it's just a matter of what you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and give it a second rinse. Like I said, 1 is mandatory, more than that is optional. I've been doing this for probably 20 to 25 years, somewhere in there. There we go. I wanted to get the seeds off of that lid as much as I can. Now, I'm going to pour some more filtered water in there, try to get all the seeds down off the jar and get them all underwater. And put the lid back on there, and I'm going to just let them sit and soak according to the instructions that came with these seeds, 6 to 8 hours. In the past, I've even soaked them as far as overnight, but 6 to 8 hours is fine for your broccoli seeds. You'll see some of them will float a little bit, and those seeds may or may not germinate, the ones that float. But anyway, I'm not going to try to fish them out. So now I'm going to set this aside and let that soak for 6 to 8 hours, somewhere in there, and I'll get back with you when we're done. All right, my seeds have soaked long enough, so we are going to drain them. I'm going to rinse them off again, and you don't have to take the lid off to rinse them. I've just started doing that because it's quicker. The water is slow to flow through these little holes, so I just like to do it where it's a little bit faster. And I'm going to drain it. Now each time I rinse it, beyond this, I don't have to rinse it. I don't rinse it more than once. I just rinse it the one time and drain it. And what I will do is prop it up at about a 45-degree angle. I might set it on a cloth and prop it up somewhere so it'll stay. You could put it on the top rack of your dishwasher open, then you can prop it that way, or on a dish rack or in a bowl, or just somehow prop it up so it's sitting at a 45-degree angle, and allow that water to drain for 15 to 20 minutes or so, something like that, till you know that the water is out. Right now it's not an issue. It won't take a long time to drain, but when you get a lot of sprouts growing in there, it will take a little bit longer to drain. And it's really, really important, because afterwards I will kind of turn it around like this to disperse those seeds around so that they're not all in a big clump. And if you didn't drain it well, you're going to have some water sitting down at the bottom here, and that water will cause them to rot. And if they do, the whole thing has to be thrown away. You wash your jar really well and you start all over. So the best way to avoid that is to make sure that it's drained really well and allow it to sit like this for a little while, and then lay it down. Now, this is my evening mode here. It's after supper time, and so light is not a concern. So I'm just going to allow it to drain for the 15 minutes or so, and then I'm going to just disperse the seeds around and lay it on its side on the kitchen counter. Tomorrow morning, I will show you that I'm going to rinse it and drain it again. And that's when we put it in a sunny location or under some grow lights, which you don't have to have, but just a bright window or some bright lit area in your home is all you really need. And you need to do this rinsing approximately once every 12 hours, like in the morning, and then like at breakfast time, and then at supper time. So roughly at a 12-hour interval, continually until they are fully grown. So anyway, that's as far as we're going to go today. I'm going to prop it up and let that drain again, and then in the morning I'll be back with you and show you where we go from there. We're at the beginning of day 2, and our seeds still look like seeds. Some of them are just barely beginning to show some tails in there. But so now I wanted to just show you once again what we're going to do twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening at roughly 12-hour intervals. We're going to just run some water in here, and again, you don't have to take the lid off to do this. I just do it because it's faster. Give them a drink. Swirl it around, make sure they all get wet. Allow it to drain, let it sit somehow, however it works for you, on an angle. Let them drain until they're completely drained. And then I like to disperse the seeds around the jar like that, just so that they all can get some airflow, and put it in a sunny location. And I will take the time today to take the camera off the tripod and show you where I allow my sprouts to grow once they drain. And for you definitely do not need to invest in grow lights for this. Just put them in a sunny or a bright location. Usually a windowsill will do. And then you want to do this rinsing routine and draining routine twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, roughly 12 hours. And I'm going to show you what these things look like each day as they grow. Alright, you can see my grow rack here in my jar there with my sprouts in there. I've turned my lights off temporarily to show this because they're just too bright for the camera. But you'll see my jar there, and behind it I've got Swiss chard. To the left I've got marjoram and basil, and to the right of it I have lettuce. And these are all growing in a non-circulating hydroponic setup. On the rack below I have kale and Swiss chard. I've harvested most of the kale. It's still growing, but I've taken most of the leaves off because I juiced the other day. And I started doing this about a year ago, and it works out really, really well in the house. It's really cool. So if you're interested in that, let me know, and I can give you some help on getting a setup like that growing. But I love it. I eat a lot of salads, so you can see I've got a lot of lettuce growing there. I've harvested some of it, and some of it's ready to be picked. Anyway, this is where my sprouts will be getting some light for roughly 12 hours during the day, and then they'll go back in the kitchen on the counter for the evening. Hope this helps. We're in the middle of day 3, and I wanted you to see a close-up here, and this is where you can really start to notice the change in the seeds. They are starting to blossom out and get their little root tails going. So we still want to continue to rinse them and drain them well twice a day at roughly 12-hour intervals. Morning and evening works out really well. And drain them well, and then put them in a brightly lit location and let them do their thing. Alright, we're at day 5 in our sprouting of broccoli seeds. I did deliberately skip day 4. There wasn't really anything noteworthy to show you. But I want to point out a couple things today. One, you see that there are some seeds here at the top of the jar that did not germinate. That's perfectly normal. Don't worry about it. No matter what batch of seeds you get, there's going to be a certain percentage of them that will not germinate. You don't worry about them. You just leave them in there for now. You'll also see that they're starting to produce some leaves in there. You'll see some green in there. They're starting to produce the leaves. This is the point where it's particularly important to have your jar in a bright location, whether it's in a sunny window or on a countertop that gets some light, somewhere where they will get some light, and that will help them to green up and produce the chlorophyll. And this is really a good thing. It makes them more appealing to eat, and I think it also helps, nutritionally speaking, too, to have them green up some. So now at this point in particular is when you want to make sure that they're in a bright location. This is day 7 on our broccoli sprouts, and you see they are looking really, really good. And you could harvest them at this point in time. But I like my jars to be really full. So I'm going to let this continue to grow for another day, day and a half, 2 days at the very most. And then that jar should be full. But they look fabulous. They're greening up and the jar is filling. This is late in the afternoon on day 9. And I believe I'm going to call these done. I am quite happy with them. Now the way I do this is, since it's in the afternoon, these were watered in the morning, watered and drained. But I am not going to water and drain them now because I don't want any excessive moisture in here whatsoever. So as you can see, this jar is pretty full, and I have a plastic container here that has a lid, and I've put a paper towel in there just to help absorb any extra moisture that happens to be in here, because that will cause these things to rot, and we don't want that. So we want to keep them in a humid environment, but not wet by any means. So there they go. I will just take some of them as we need them to put on our salads. They're good as a snack, whatever. But you can see this is just a full bin's worth of sprouts out of that tablespoon and a half of seeds. Well, there you go. I showed you how I grow broccoli sprouts, or any kind of sprouts for that matter, in 8 days. And I hope this answers your questions on how I grow sprouts. But do check the description box below, because I do have a lot of valuable, important tips for successfully growing sprouts down there. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. This is Judy at Judi in the Kitchen. Have a great day.